Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Gender Studies 103, um, Introduction to Gender Studies. Hope everyone's staying safe and everyone is well. My fellow quarantine inmates, coming to you from my dining room. Not so comfortable on camera, but I'm going to do my best. So this is going to be kind of the introductory that I would do if I was dancing across the classroom. So welcome everyone. So the purpose of the course really is to really distinguish between sex and gender, because these are often used interchangeably. Um, so it really wants to explore how we're all inherently gendered, how a lot of our institutions and our structures in society are also gendered. Um, really wants to look at ideologies around masculinity and femininity and where do these come from, and sort of what do we expect, what are the expectations around these. Looking also at how language can be gendered. For example, saying something like policeman genders that job because it gives us the impression that only men can do that job. So the gendering of language, looking at the relationship between gender and sexuality. Our sexuality and our sexual identity is very much gendered, and we very much gender it when we talk about it and we think about it. Um, Looking at gender in media and popular culture, because things like ad images or films or TV shows or these types of things can often be very laden with gender ideologies, which is ideas about what men and women should be, what they should do, how they should relate to each other. The course also is going to begin by looking at approaches to gender. So anybody who's taken courses with me before, we always talk about lenses on how you look at things and how you see the world and how you see what's happening in the world. And so it's the same thing with gender. Lots of academics sit back and they go, okay, how do I understand what's happening right now? So we're looking at some of the approaches to that. This course will be a little bit interdisciplinary in the sense that when I teach gender, I don't do it specifically from a women's studies or a sociology perspective. I like to bring in lots of different ones. So, cross-cultural stuff, anthropological stuff. The objective of the course is by the end of it, if you don't already, you should be able to explain the ways gender, sex, and sexuality are constructed, because these are not given. These are constructs that we participate in. In case you're wondering, I'm going off the syllabus that I am going to post once I kind of fix it up a little bit. So it should be up today or tomorrow in time for class. By the end of the course, you should be able to kind of apply a critical lens to these different approaches to masculinity and femininity. So, we're going to go through the different approaches to gender, and then I want you to be able to sort of decide what works for you, what doesn't work for you, so sort of a critical lens. And then looking at gender from an intersectional and transnational approach. In case those words are scary, we're going to unpack them. But really all it means at this point is you can't look at gender alone. Gender intersects with lots of different aspects of your identity. So your experience of masculinity and femininity, your experience of gender, can be impacted by things like race, things like sexuality, things like ethnicity, nationality, ability, disability. All of these things intersect to kind of influence your experiences of gender. So that's what the course is about, and that's what I hope that you're going to take from it. Your textbook is actually open and free and online, and in the syllabus it has a link to where you can find it, and so that'll be on there. For those who've not taken courses with me before, or have, I guess, the method of instruction is going to be a little bit different because obviously we're not in the classroom. I can't tell my stupid jokes and all of that kind of stuff. I still do. You're going to have readings because the textbook will be on there. I'll post, TED Talks or some films or things like that, or links to films that you can watch, just like I would show a movie in class. I encourage participation, and my hope, if I can figure it out, is to have a discussion board. So for each topic that we have, I might pose a question, and it would be your job to go in there and sort of discuss it or think about it or chat about it in there, almost like we would if we were in the classroom. That is my hope. The other piece of this is my methods are to have students link all of the materials to something that's going on in their life. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to necessarily disclose anything, but it's when you're thinking about concepts and you're thinking about theories and you're trying to work through the course materials, encouraging you to make the personal political. So how are the small things that I'm going through in my world linked to larger issues in the world? Or how are the larger issues in the world connected to something that I'm going through? So I always want the materials to resonate with you. Your course philosophies is that we're both learners, right? So although I'm the content expert, I learn from you as well. And that's always been my approach. Anybody, again, who's taking a course with me knows that I don't approach it from if I want your opinion, I will give it to you. That's not how I roll. So it's a dialogue, I guess is what I'm saying, between all of us. We're all required to attend Blackboard sessions on a regular basis. And in doing this, we need to create a safe, open, respectful environment the same way as you do in the classroom. So in the classroom, we talk about sensitive things, and I require everyone to be respectful. Thumper's mother, if you have nothing nice to say nothing at all. I've always said that sometimes we come in really sort of super sensitive and just not feeling ourselves, and something that is discussed may trigger you or may anger you. Frame it in a respectful way. Again, I'm going to introduce lots of different things to you. What I want is critical reflection. I want you to engage with the ideas. I want you to think about the ideas. That doesn't mean I want you to change your mind. So you may have a particular perspective on something. Be critical, think about it, question why you think the way you do. And at the end of the class, you might have changed your mind or you might not have. Right? And I'm okay with that as long as you have thought about it and engaged with the material and questioned your thought process. What else? So at the end of the course, what I'm hoping is that you leave with a developed or enhanced critical thinking ability. The other piece of this is we're still going to have tests and all of the original things. I will set some due dates. These things are all due on the dates that we assign, unless we mutually agree that there's a reason that we need to push things or, whatever. When I grade things, there's no bartering for grades. People, again, who've had me know that what I say is take your test, take your paper, sit with it, look at what I've asked, look at what you've done. If you honestly think there's a place that you deserve additional grades, I will be happy to look at it. However, I won't sit with someone and they'll say, well, I need a B to get into, or I need a B to keep my visa, or I don't do those sorts of things. I grade a lot, and so there's places where I might make mistakes or forget things or add things up incorrectly, take your stuff, sit with it, come back to me. I can look over it and, see what I can do. You have to complete all components of the course to pass the course, and it's structured in such a way that everything builds on the other. And when I get to the assignment piece, you'll see that one assignment builds on the other to a finished product. It's really important that you participate, and especially important that you participate in this way because we're not in class. And the more you participate, the more you engage with the material, the more I think you'll take from it. And again, you're not going to like everything that we're reading or everything that we're talking about. I'm not particularly political, other than, say, movements around social justice. I don't particularly find economics interesting. I'm more of a sexuality, sex, gender, media kind of guy. But what I want you to do is to engage with everything. And even if we're doing something political, try and connect something you're interested to the political realm, right? So I like doing stuff on the body. So I tend to, when I'm doing politics, I tend to try and do the politicization of the body, or connecting the body and embodiment to politics, or something that, gets my juices flowing. And that's all I'm going to say about that. We do controversial topics. And like I say in the classroom, if ever there is a video, or if ever I have a lecture, or if ever there's any component of the course that triggers you, makes you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to engage with that. Let me know personally, and I won't hold you accountable for that particular movie. I don't want anyone to be uncomfortable or triggered. That's not what we're here for. We're here for learning. So, what else? Test format. Again, for those of you who've suffered with me in perhaps 2 classes now, and perhaps this will be 3 or 4, I like my testing format because it's hard to get a handle on it the first time, but it's tried, true, and tested that it works. So what I do is I have a define and discuss section. Your define and discuss section is usually worth 3 marks each. And so what I'll do is I'll pull out a concept. Let's just use one that we will probably talk about in here, compulsory heterosexuality. I might ask you to define that concept. So what does it mean? And when I say define, if you're the type of person who needs to use my definition, then do that. But basically define it in terms of your understanding of it. That's a point. Then give the context where we talked about it. And that is less complicated than you think it is. It's literally where we talked about the concept. What was the topic we were talking about? So it's just that simple. And that's another point. And then your third point is going to be for an example. So give me an example either from the outside world, from your world, from the textbook, from somewhere, to illustrate that you understand that concept. So again, your define and discuss is 3 steps. You define it, you give the context where we talked about it, and you give an example. Students that I've had over my 20 some odd years of teaching have come up to me in various places and said, I remember the concepts you talked about in class, right? And so I don't just want you to know these things and then to get the credit and to get your degree and then, okay, peace out, bitches. I want you to be able to really know this stuff and walk away with some value. The second section is your regular essay. So often what I'll do is I will show a movie and I will ask you to connect the movie to themes or issues in class. Sometimes I'll give you, so for theoretical perspectives on gender, we might go through, 2, 4, 10, 20 perspectives on gender. And I might say, compare, contrast, and discuss the perspectives on gender that we talked about, using examples where possible. So it's just a general essay. and length is however much you need um, to get everything that you need in there. Your tests will usually be in class, but because we're in COVID lockdown and we're inmates, what I will do likely is post it in Blackboard, give you a specified time to have it done. You can email it to me and I'll print it off because I'm old. I can't mark online. My eyes go crossed and I start to have to drink wine and it gets really messy. And so, um, your essay assignment um, basically is, what you're going to do is you're going to pick a topic in gender studies. And gender studies is huge. It can be pretty much anything to do with gender. And you are going to write a formal essay for me. I thought about changing this for the format that we're in, and then I thought no, because I really want to see that you can engage critically and analytically with a topic, that you can think about a topic, and that you can put it together and write for me. I've often not made explicit, and it's come back to bite me, but in your essay, I need to see evidence not just of critical thinking and analytical thinking, but I need to see evidence that you have incorporated the concepts and the theories and the thinkers and the themes from class. So if you pick, say, gender in media, for instance, I'm going to be looking to see that you've incorporated some of the stuff that's in the book or that we've talked about, or, just to demonstrate evidence. And I also acknowledge that writing is not easy to do. I just came off education leave and I was writing a book proposal, and writing does not come easy to me either. It can be an excruciating process, but also a rewarding one. So, yeah. Suggestions: select a topic early. That way you're not A, last minute, B, picking a topic that is soul sucking, that you've picked because it's due in 2 hours and you need to do something. So pick it as soon as possible. If you're concerned about your choice, email me your topic and I can give you, some suggestions. Yeah, that's a good topic. Or, yeah, that's a good topic, but you're going to have a hard time finding materials, or, things like that. So do it as early as you can. Give yourself adequate time to do the research. So if you are doing this last minute, you don't have time to find good research. You don't have time to sit with the research and really do a good job with it. When you pick your topic, find one or two good articles and then go to their bibliography, see who they've looked at, and then, that'll help you start to find some more materials. Make an outline. So as you're going through your research and as you're starting your paper, make an outline of how you want it to look, the things that you want to talk about, sort of lay it out a little bit. And that way, it's much easier to actually write the paper when you sit down to write it. Stick to the point. So sometimes what I find helpful is to do subheadings. That way you're only writing about one topic or, a couple of topics in the appropriate places. Make more than one draft. So your first draft is not or shouldn't be your only draft. A couple of drafts usually makes your paper better. So give your first draft to someone who doesn't know anything about your topic. Give it to grandma, give it to the bus driver, give it to the lunch lady, give it to someone who doesn't know the topic, have them read it, and if they can understand what you're trying to say, then you got kick-ass paper. Proofread your final copy, then get someone else to proofread your final copy, because I'm a bit of a grammar Nazi, and I don't want to have to drink additional bottles of wine or stand on my head or whatever it takes to figure out what you're saying. In terms of structure, now you can read all of this stuff. There's more stuff in the syllabus, but you can read all of this. Your paper should be 6 to 10 pages. Now, if it's 7 pages and you've done everything that you can possibly do and you think it's great, fine. 6 to 10 pages. Try not to make it more. Try to be concise and succinct. If you're at 5 pages and you say you've done everything you possibly can, what I suggest is go back through the 5 pages, see if there's anything that you can actually expand on. So if there's points that you can explain more, if there's concepts that you can define, if there's some way you can make the paper more explanatory rather than shoveling, right? Because sometimes less is more. And the more you add to a paper, it actually takes away from the paper, right? It should be 12-point font. It should be official APA format. And so if you don't know what APA is, I don't think you probably have access to the university, but you might have access to the online library, or I think they have APA online. So you should get a copy of that. Your title page and your reference page are not included in your page length. So if you've got 5 pages and one is your title page and one is your bibliography, I'm probably going to get cranky. Let me see. I would say a minimum of 8 academic peer-reviewed sources. So academic peer-reviewed means that it's by an expert who has an MA or a PhD, who's affiliated with the university. They've written a book or an article and it's been reviewed by peers in their field. So things like Mansers.com and Wiki and The Guardian and newspapers and all of these things, magazine articles, generally are not. I mean, they can be if it's, an expert with a PhD in the area writing the article, but generally not. Don't put your assignments in any kind of folders or report covers, just plain paper stapled. Your paper can be interdisciplinary, provided it's not overly psychological or overly medical or biological, because this is a social science paper. But if there's pieces from the different disciplines that feed into your paper, then you need to, right? And there's more explanations when I post our syllabus. Course expectations, come prepared to talk. All course materials are testable, so I never show a movie to fill time. There's always a question or it's always tied in somewhere. It says I will not accept emailed assignments, but I will because we're in a different space right now and we kind of have to do that, right? Usually I give a formal review sheet a week in advance of your test. This time I won't be doing that because you get to do it from home, right? So normally what I would do is I would give all the concepts we've done. I would give all the essays that I could possibly ask, and then you can use it as kind of a study sheet. This time I won't do that. Simply what I'll do is you go through your notes. If there's things that you think you're missing, if there's definitions that maybe you missed or something like that, you can go through the book and get them. Or if it's something I've brought in a lecture, you can ask me, right? But the review sheet's really not necessary because you're doing it from home, right? The online classroom is a respectful place, like I said, for an exchange of ideas. Homophobia, sexism, racism, all the isms that make me throw up in my mouth will not be tolerated and will be subject to the policies of UNBC. How do I grade things? I look for critical and analytical thinking. I look for grammar, punctuation, all of the basics, but I also look that you've really engaged with materials. For the most part, I almost don't care the arguments that you make in your papers and your assignments, as long as you give me good evidence, it's solid, you've thought about it, it's not racist, sexist, homophobic, but you really take ownership of this. You make the argument that you think fits with who you are. Um, Plagiarism, you're subject to your policies in the university, so you should be aware of the policies and procedures. That's the other reason that you should start your papers and your assignments early, because sometimes plagiarism happens when you are really strapped for time, and you're burning the candle at both ends. Midnight, you're cutting and you're pasting and you're cutting and you're pasting and you're moving, and you make a mistake and you plagiarize and you didn't mean to. So if you give yourself lots of time, it gives you, you know, less room for academic misconduct. So the main criteria for your essays are critical thinking, analytical skills and abilities, your organization of your thoughts and your materials. So that means, do I read your paper and start going twitching a little bit because it's all over the place? Clear and concise expression and presentation of ideas and arguments. Tell me clearly what your purpose in your paper is, what your argument is, or your statement of the problem, and how you're going to attack it. And that should be at the beginning of your assignment. Um, I grade according to academic writing and referencing, so that you're using academic language and not blog language or social media language or slang or all of these sorts of things. And then spelling, grammar, and consistent referencing, which is obvious, right? Office hours. I'm going to try to set up some sort of forum in here if I possibly can, where we'll have our discussion forum, but then we could have another forum where it could sort of be all of us chatting together about things we need to know or questions that we have. Outside of that, office hours would really be via email, um, just because that's where we kind of are right now. Getting help. Always, always, always ask me questions for clarification, things that you don't understand. Um, it really sucks when you didn't understand something and you didn't ask the question and you get the C when you could have gotten a B plus if had you asked the question. So no question is stupid. Um, no amount of times that you ask the question are bad. I've often, as an undergrad and both of my grad degrees, you ask a question, you get the answer, you shake your head, oh, I understand, when inside you really don't, or you think you do, and you get home and you're like, what the hell? And so you go back and you ask, and often I've had to ask 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 times because it's like it's hitting me in the face and it's just not getting in here. So I understand it. Ask as many times as you need. Um, I don't know how much access you're going to have to your ARC, to your student support center, but call them if you, or email them if you need help or you need accommodations, and then they email me with the accommodations and the help that you need. I don't see learning as psychological warfare. So you need to get what you need to get to where you need to be, right? This is your education. So you need to get the help and the resources that you need. I should add to that too, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. You can ask some of the people that may be taking the course who've had me before, but it isn't about me. So you don't have to you don't have to be warm and fuzzy about me. I mean, I hope you do. I like it when people like me. It makes me happy and makes my heart smile, or the black place where my heart would be smile. But regardless of the feelings that you have towards me, it's the same as getting help. You need to do in the course what you need to do to get what you need, because the A or the B or the C or whatever it is you're shooting for, that's yours and you need it to get what you need, right? So it's not about me. I'm your resource to hopefully help you get the things that you need, right? Enough about that. So your evaluations. For some of you, it's pretty standard. You've been through this before. For others, maybe not so much. Ignore the hair. There's no salons open. So we'll have 2 tests worth, I think, 15% each. And they'll be roughly at equal intervals in the semester. So you'll have equal sort of covering or equal amounts of material. Your second one is not cumulative from your first one. So, most of what you do on your second test leaves behind what you've done on your first, unless, of course, there's something from the first test that's relevant to the second, right? 30%. And, you will do fine. We'll get you as prepared as you need to be. You have a research proposal, and a proposal is just what it suggests. It's laying out what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and I will try and get you some guidelines. Usually I will hand out a paper copy, but I'll try and just post some guidelines of what I'm looking for. If I don't, in the next couple of weeks, someone remind me. So your proposal will be, I think, 20%. And for your proposal, do the best job you can, because the better your proposal is, the easier your paper will be to write. If you have a really good proposal, all you have to do is blow that up for your final paper, right? So the more work you put in, the more time you put in, the more effort you put in, the easier your paper will be. Then you got your research paper, which is 40%. So, it's a big part of your grade with the two of these together, but ask me questions, start early, I'll walk you through it. Any questions that you have, anything you need, I'm here. Use me. I'm a resource. I don't know much, but I know how to do research and I know how to construct papers. So really, ask me questions. And then your final piece is your participation, attendance, discussion, academic conduct. So am I going in and seeing that you're in the discussion forums on a regular basis? Are you playing nice when you're in there? Are you sending nice emails to your colleagues, nice emails to me? And you're not like emailing, hey, you with the face, right? So academic conduct, so how we carry ourselves. And that makes up pretty much the course. What I would say is don't get scared. Don't run away. If you know people in the class who might have had me before, ask, you'll get out the other end. It seems like a lot. It's not as much as some courses, but it's heavier on the writing in my classes than some. But you'll do it, and I'm here for you, like I said, and I'm going to be here for you as much as I can in this new normal, as they call it. Final thing before I shut this video down and hopefully get it posted. So the things that we're going to cover, hopefully, sometimes I get carried away, we don't get through everything. So I'm going to introduce in my next video sort of the field of gender studies, defining the field, sort of where it started, why we do it, what it includes, how it's evolved, all these sorts of things. Then we'll get into theoretical traditions. So what are some of the theoretical frameworks that are out there, some of the lenses that are out there for understanding gender and gender relations and all these sorts of things. Then we'll look at intersectionality, and I told you what intersectionality is, right? But we're going to pull it apart. And if I remember, I actually have a really cool video by one of the people who is big in intersectional discussions, Patricia Hill Collins, who is a African-American feminist and social thinker. And she does, I think it's a YouTube video, not very long, but she talks about it. Then we're going to look at gender and the politics of body and representation. So how is gender embodied? How is the body gendered? How is it political? We'll look at representations in media, popular culture, social media, all these sorts of things. We'll look at gender and family, because families are very gendered, right down from the division of labor in the household to the public-private split of who works outside the home, who works inside the home. We'll look at gender and health in the sense that men and women have similar but also very different health experiences and health needs, and health is a very gendered thing. We'll look at gender in education. So again, we know that our education system is highly gendered. in the sense that, we have a history of programs being very gender specific, women and men getting streamed into very different jobs or very different educational paths. So men being streamed into trades, women being streamed into nursing, men being streamed into med school, women being streamed into teaching, and the changes in this based on or due to the changes in gender and gender roles and relationships. So more women are going into trades, more women are going to med school, more men are going into nursing and non-traditional trades. We'll talk about things like the glass ceiling and the glass escalator and the sticky floor, which some of you may know already from women's studies with me. Some of you may know from just knowing it. Some of you may be like, what the hell are you talking about? Anyway, we'll talk about things like that. We'll talk about gender in media and popular culture. So not just body in these things, but how is gender represented or depicted in various medias. So things like advertising, the way that men and women are positioned, how they relate to each other, the way the body is in there, kind of is very gendered and is very indicative of gender relations. We'll do sexualities and gender. So again, I told you that sexuality, sexual orientation, sexual identity is very gendered, right? Right down to people who are identifying as gender non-binary, the gendered assumptions we make around sexuality. So for a long time, desire, for instance, was really gendered. We thought that women didn't have any desires, or the only desire that they really had was vis-a-vis pleasing their husbands or partners. Men were supposed to be very non-conservative in their desires and in their sexual practices, having multiple partners, being very promiscuous. We have this stereotype in society that gay men are very promiscuous, that they have multiple partners, that they can't be monogamous, all these sorts of things. And we know this is a myth, right? I'm a gay man who's been with my partner for nearly 6 years now and we were completely monogamous, right? But looking just at how sexuality is very gendered and how we think about it can be very gendered. And then we will look at gendered violence. And for those of you who already know me, you know that I see violence as a very gendered thing, and I'd rather refer to it as men's violence against women or gender-based violence, to indicate that disproportionately women experience violence from their male friends, partners, significant others, whatever you want to call it. But also talking about, how gender and how we think about gender, particularly masculinity, has really brought a lot of men to not talk about violence that they're experiencing. Because again, an example of that is, who's going to believe a 6'5", 250-pound man when he says his 5'2" wife is abusing him? They're going to say, you're not a real man, you're a sissy. Oh, please, it's not real. And so men are afraid to disclose the violence that they're experiencing, right? So just some of those sorts of things, and that's going to be the course. Before I sign off, because we're up to almost 40 minutes, a couple of things I would say is, don't run away. I know that you're shopping for courses, but stay. I think we'll have some fun. I'm going to be patient with you because I know some of you are tech savvy and some of you are not. And so you're going to be struggling. I ask that you be patient with me too. I am not tech savvy in any stretch. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to ask for help where I need it. What else would I say? This course is asynchronous. And what that means is, so we're supposed to meet on Mondays and Wednesdays or something like that, I believe. What I'm saying is I'm going to try and get things posted at the end of 1 week. So say we're doing gender and work. So I'm going to try and get the stuff for the next topic posted at the end of the gender and work week, so you can go into the next week with the new topic. We don't have to be in here for class time. You can do the work over the week at your leisure when you can. I know that if we were in class, obviously you would have to make time to be there for class time, right? The beauty of online is that I know a lot of you might have to be working. I know a lot of you are probably doing other classes online. You've got shit happening. So as long as we're doing it in the week that it's due, it gives us a little time to breathe. So that is my plan. Normally now I would ask if there's any questions. If there's any questions out of anything that I've said, um, do email me. Maybe not, well, you can today if you have general questions, but maybe wait until I post the syllabus for specific questions. Having said that, I'm going to sign off and try and get someone to help me post this. Have a great day, guys. Stay safe. Try not to go out if you don't have to. Try not to kill the people that you're living with if you possibly can. Try not to pour your first glass of wine until noon. And have fun. Okay. See ya.